done this video before, a form of it, showing how you can use brushstrokes, art history, to create some lovely designs, very simple design using a star brush. Create this lovely tangle of design like that. So I'm just going to run through it because I've done it before, but I've had questions. People said, how do you get this design? Now, the image itself, I'm just going to go straight back to the open document. There's the open document. So you've got that. That's a poser design, or probably Daz Studio, I'm not certain, one of the two. And I created it in that. The brush itself, I'm just going to go to the brush and I'm just going to create the brush, and I'm using the polygon tool. So there's the polygon tool. Now that might be in a different position depending on your customization of Photoshop. I'm using 221, but 220, 22019, whatever. So just going to go to that, and then I'm just going to go for pixels using normal, opacity 100%, anti-alias set there, and also just set there. Now this might be different in your version because if you're using an older version of Photoshop, they've changed some of these panels. But what you want is a standard looking star at 50% star ratio. So I'm going with 50% and I'm using 8 points. So you can change obviously number of points, but I'm just going to go with, now I'm using black and I'm just going to create a, now you can see it's about, that doesn't matter, it's about 330. That sort of thing, pixels, see, all the way around. But I'm just going to quickly show you the image as well. So image menu and image size, so you can get sort of similar sort of thing if you want to do that. 1890 and 1417. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to select. So it doesn't really matter particularly on the size of that. So just select that design there. Now I'm going to define it as a brush. So edit menu and define brush preset. So give it a name, click OK. So now it's stored away as a brush. If I go to the brushes, you'll be able to see it. So window and brushes, you could see it just down there. So it's in the brush presets. Now, just going to go back to the other document, the one with the image, and then I'm going to flatten it. So I'm just going to go to layer menu and flatten image. Now what I need to do, I need to put a history state. How can you do a history state? I'm using this art history. I'm not going to use that brush. I'm going to be using the art history. And I'll show you where that is in a few seconds. So first thing to do, go over here and you see this little, down this side, there's these boxes and you've got flatten image. Just flatten. What I want to do is click there. So that's where the art history will use. Sets the source for the history brush. Actually not strictly true. It's the art history brush. So just there, you can see this little marker will be put aside against it. Now you don't have to touch it from there. Just leave it like that. So once you've done that, what you need to do is go to the actual art history. Now you might not have it in that position because customization. So if you go down here, you should see, and it might obviously, you might have an art history brush already available, so depending on your version. But you can customize Photoshop tools. So it might be in a different position. So go to those dots at the bottom and edit the toolbar and you'll see art history brush tool there. Now you may have it over here or somewhere else. So it could be tucked away in the sort of brushes that are not, or tools that are not available. But what you can do, you can simply select and drag and you can put it there for access. So art history brush, and you can see it then and use it. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to select the brush that I've just created, and there's that star brush, the sample brush. Now I don't want it at 339. What I want is to be down at, say, let's say 9 pixels. That's why. But if you use a different brush, sometimes if you use maybe a circular brush or some other type of, this effect will not work. It does seem to work very nicely with a star brush. That's what I've just found, observation. So just reducing that. Now I'm using, let's say it's 9 pixels, very, but you can have it obviously greater, you can make it more smudged and bigger brush strokes, but you can of course vary. You can go for 9 and 30, 40, it doesn't have to be down at that sort of size. So you've got mode, normal, you can change that of course if you want, opacity, also tight short, I'm using the style tight short, area 50 pixels, tolerance 0, and the angle 0. Now some of these settings may or may not be available because things have been changed, obviously. So in 2.18, it may be different. So now I've set that. Now the brush settings, I've got brush settings here, and you can find that in the window and brush settings. Now at this point, I've got nothing set on. So it's just a complete raw brush. So now you've got history over here, you've got the history state set, you've got the brush, which is very, very small brush. But of course I've got the image here. Now I could apply it at this point, and I can apply it to this thing, and you can see as you apply it, you can just go on top of the existing image, which is fine. I don't want that. Now what you can do, you could apply, maybe blur it. So filter menu, blur, Gaussian blur, just sort of blur it like that. And then apply the brush. And you can see you can create over the top of there. Or, undo that again, what you can do, you can go to edit menu and you can fill, and instead of history, you could use history because that just brings back the image. You could just use white or you could use black. So let's go black and then apply it then. And so you can see design there. Or edit and fill, and this time I'm going to go with white. And again, what you can do, you don't have to go with 9 pixels. I mean, I've gone for that, but maybe put it up to 38 or 39. And then you can see just you get bigger, chunkier brushes, which is nice. It's just a sort of start point. Then you can always go back again, just reduce the size. So you can see the start there, there's the design there, but if you reduce it down to 9 pixels, you get a thin, and also you can set it lower. So 4 pixels, you can see very thin line there. And then you can apply over, and just apply over and again. And of course what you can do, you can always go to edit and fill, and you go to maybe go for history. Now what we'll do, if you do history, it will just put the original image there. So contents of history, and that's the history, that's where you flattened it right at that point. So that's the start point, the whole thing. So click OK and just brings it back in. But what you can do, you can always go to edit and fade fill, and then you can just run through this. So you can darken, multiply, lighten, lighter colour, hard light, and so on and so on. You can see you can create all kinds of unusual designs just by doing that, like that difference. Now I'm just going to go back to this design, because what you can also do, you've got brush settings over here, window and brush settings. You can go for colour dynamics. So if you want to maybe make something more colourful than this, put the hue jitter up, maybe apply per tip, saturation jitter, maybe change the purity. So I've gone for 40% and 66%, 66%, and then just apply it. And then you get quite a garish colour scheme then added to that, which you may or may not want. Now what you can also do, I'm doing that, you can also apply it on a layer. You don't have to apply it just to the same layer all the time. So layer menu and new layer, click OK. So you've got a layer. So if you move that out of the way, properties, don't want that, want the window and layers, there it is. So you've got a completely empty layer, and then you can simply just add the brush strokes to that. Makes it easier to delete if you don't want it in the end. So you can just apply it over and over again. And of course, once you've got that, you can see the layer there. It doesn't have much of it. So if I remove the background, you've got that. That's all you've got at this point. Of course, it's on a layer, so what you can do, you can go to layer menu and layer style, and you can add bevels and emboss. So you can just add a nice bevel, which of course you can vary, change the depth, change the size, make it very, very subtle, soft, change the angle, also change the gloss contour. I mean, the result is not particularly, I don't think, very flattering, but if you're looking forward to creating very unusual design, and again, click OK, and then you can just click and remove that, and you can see your design there. And of course, if you decide, you know what, I don't want that, you can always remove it, and you can always go to layer and new layer, click OK. And again, Instead, I'm not going to go for the colours. I'm just going to go for reduce that down again. So all set back there, and then I'm just going to apply it like that. Ooh, just set that off as well. And you can see you get the design there. You can change purity. It's actually quite nice to have some bit of jitter there for just to create a bit of a variation. And of course it's on a layer. What you can do, you can always go to filter, maybe blur it. So you can filter, and that's just applying to that. So layers, just applied that. Or just go to undo and maybe use filter and distort. Maybe wave or zigzag. You can create all kinds of different designs. And of course what you can do, you can always, because it's a layer, you can always move it. Hold down the Alt or Option key and you can see you can create all kinds of very abstract effects. And of course once you've done that, you can always go to Flatten Image, Layer Menu and Flatten Image, yep. And then of course you've got that background, that sort of colour scheme. You can always apply some filters, but you can also just go back to the art history and simply apply the art history brush again to that. Or maybe undo and then maybe just go to edit and fill. And again, apply history, click OK. What you can do, edit and fade fill. And you can go darken and you can see you can create all kinds of combinations, very abstract combinations of screen like that. Click OK. So you can see there's a whole load of things you can do with just a very simple brush stroke from using the art history, just a very simple brush, just simple design like that. Like I say, 300 by 300 star, which is just very basic, and you can create some very unusual, and of course you can continue to work with that if you wish. And also, of course, you can go to adjustments and maybe say instead of that, you can turn it into black and white, and so on and so on. Click OK. Hope you found this tutorial of interest. Please subscribe to the Graphic Extras channel. Always adding new tutorials about Photoshop, Illustrator, InDesign, Affinity Publisher, Affinity Photo, Affinity Designer, Affinity everything else, Critter and Painter and many, many others. Also, please add some comments. Always appreciate what things have I done wrong, which things have I done right, things you didn't understand. Maybe I said something a bit too quick or maybe I just didn't explain something and you think I sort of went over something. I quite easily do that. I think, oh, that's so obvious that I don't go through and detail every single bit. So my apologies if you haven't. I can always go over at certain points. Please let me know in the comments. Always try and redo the video or a particular part of the video. Also a dislike or like. Thank you much.